World War III. It's a chilling prospect, but in today's world, it's also a very real possibility. If the unthinkable happens, what do you do? Where would you be safe? In this video, we'll reveal the 10 best places to survive a global catastrophe. From remote islands to mountain fortresses, these are the last bastions of safety when the world goes up in flames. Number 10. Albania. Albania might not be the first place you think of when it comes to surviving World War III. In fact, if you're familiar with nuclear history, this choice might even shock you. Why? Well, because back in the Cold War era, Albania was set for complete destruction under the US military's COP62 plan. Yep, that's right, total obliteration. After learning of the plan, Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara was told, jokingly, by General Thomas Powers, "Well, Mr. Secretary, I hope you don't have any friends or relations in Albania, because we are just going to have to wipe it out." The reasoning? The Soviets had installed massive air defense radar systems within Albania's borders, making it a priority target. It's a grim history, and on the surface, it doesn't sound like the safest place to be, so why would you put it on the list of most survivable places in the world? One word: bunkers. Thanks to the iron-fisted rule of Enver Hoxha, a dictator whose paranoia was legendary, Albania is littered with bunkers, over 700,000 of them to be precise. That's one bunker for every 4 people. Let that sink in for a moment. Even if you take the most conservative estimates, you're still looking at an average of roughly 15 bunkers for every square mile. But what's up with all these bunkers? Well, Hoxha was so convinced that Albania would face invasion from all sides, whether from the Soviet Union, NATO, or even neighboring countries, that he turned his entire nation into a fortress. And not all of these bunkers are just small hideaways for a couple of people. Some of these bunkers are designed to withstand nuclear blasts. That's why Albania stands as one of the best prepared places for anyone looking to survive a global catastrophe today. When the sirens wail and cities crumble, finding shelter in one of Hoxha's nuclear bunkers might just save your life. Number 9. The Ural Mountains in Russia. Including Russia on the list of the safest places in case of World War III will probably raise some eyebrows. After all, the country is more frequently seen on another type of list, the nations that will actively participate in World War III, if not cause it. But let's approach this entry from a more hypothetical standpoint. Imagine you're looking for the ultimate shelter from a global catastrophe. The Ural Mountains, and particularly the hidden bunker complexes under Mount Yamantau and Kozvinsky Mountain, might just be the safest hideaways on Earth. These forested, rugged fortresses were originally constructed as part of a Cold War-era project designed to protect high-ranking officials in case of a nuclear attack. The Soviet Union initiated these deep underground bunkers to serve as a secondary command center, similar to the US Cheyenne Mountain Complex, which sits under 2,000 feet of rock and could stand a 30-ton megablast within 1.2 miles. Similar resilience is likely what Russia had in mind, though we can only speculate as the Russian government remains cryptically silent about their exact purpose and functionality. But here's what we do know. The geography of the Urals itself is a powerful shield. The strategic location at the center of Russia, far from vulnerable borders, offers significant insulation from direct strikes. At over 5,380 feet high, Mount Yamantau, or Evil Mountain as it's known locally, sits in a remote and difficult-to-penetrate region. Plus, mountainous terrain naturally absorbs much of the heat and radiation from nuclear explosions. If satellite images and sparse US intelligence are correct, it hosts massive underground bunkers capable of withstanding modern nuclear attacks. Basements alone reduce radiation by a factor of 10 compared to above-ground exposure, and these bunkers go far beyond that. A closed city in the vicinity, Mezgoraya, reportedly houses tens of thousands of workers tasked with maintaining the site, and some speculate that the complex could store crucial supplies from food reserves to valuable natural treasures, all safeguarded underground. If you could somehow make it into this highly guarded place, though, the Ural Mountains could theoretically be one of the safest, if not the safest, places on Earth. But in all likelihood, they'll remain an in-theory sanctuary for most of us. Number 8. Raven Rock, Pennsylvania. Here's another somewhat controversial entry for you. The last one, I promise. Like the Ural Mountains, Raven Rock is located in a country likely to directly take part in World War III. What's more, given its military might, the US probably wouldn't just be involved in a global conflict, it will be at the forefront. So why hide away in a country that's a prime target for nuclear attacks? Well, don't dismiss the US as a haven just yet. The country's vast size and geographical features offer significant protection. With the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans as natural barriers, America is harder to invade than most. Its self-sufficiency is another strength. The US is a net exporter of both food and oil, meaning it can largely sustain itself in a global crisis. Exports make up only 10% of the US GDP, compared to much higher percentages in other developed nations like Germany. where exports account for 43.4% of GDP in 2023. This economic independence, combined with its sheer landmass, means many Americans, especially those outside major cities, could ride out a global catastrophe with minimal disruption. And this brings us to Raven Rock. Known as the Underground Pentagon, Raven Rock is a top-secret bunker hidden beneath a 1,500-foot mountain built to protect the US military command during a nuclear attack. This Cold War-era facility can house up to 3,000 people for 30 days in its subterranean complex. Completed in 1953 for $35 million, that's roughly $413 million today, it includes everything from water tanks and power plants to a fitness center, and even vending machines for snacks during the apocalypse. It's one of the most secure locations in the entire US and was used by officials like Dick Cheney during 9/11. While some may view it as a relic of the Cold War, Raven Rock remains a critical part of the US government's continuity of operation plans. Its ability to shelter military and government leaders in the event of a major crisis makes it an undeniable contender for one of the safest places to be when the world crumbles. Number 7. Antarctica. Listing Antarctica as a World War III haven might seem extreme. It's desolate, frozen, and incredibly hard to reach, but it's also one of the most isolated places on Earth. If global conflict erupts, no spot will offer you more distance from all the chaos. However, this icy continent has another ace up its sleeve, the Antarctic Treaty of 1959. Signed by 12 countries, including the US and the Soviet Union, this treaty banned military activities and nuclear explosions on the continent. Antarctica has remained a peaceful zone dedicated solely to scientific research. Even in a global crisis, it would take more than signing a paper to breach that peace. Whoever dared would have to fight through minus 71 degrees Fahrenheit temperatures, winds reaching 200 miles per hour, and thick, relentless ice. With an area of 5.5 million square miles, Antarctica is larger than Europe and almost as large as the US and Mexico combined. It's so far from civilization that even if a country wanted to drop a nuclear bomb here, it would struggle with logistics. And for what? There's no strategic advantage in blowing up a wasteland of ice, and without cities, there's no population to target. So if you're facing the possibility of atomic annihilation, Antarctica might just be the safest option on the planet. The Guardian even modeled it as the prime survival zone in the case of nuclear war. If it came down to it, this continent could be your cold, quiet escape. Just don't forget your parka. Number 6. Fiji. For the next entry on our list, we can trade your parka for a sarong and flip the switch from survival mode to pure bliss. Well, as blissful as it can get given the circumstances. Welcome to Fiji, an island country located deep in the South Pacific, some 1,100 nautical miles north-northeast of New Zealand. However, with over 300 islands and 540 islets scattered across 1 million square miles, this archipelago has more to offer than its tropical allure. Fiji's geographical remoteness alone makes it a highly unlikely target in any global conflict. Fiji is also free from large cities, major industries, and critical political infrastructure, meaning it's far less likely to attract the attention of global superpowers. In the event of nuclear warfare, this absence of high-value targets undoubtedly makes Fiji one of the safest spots on the map. Fiji's small military, just 3,500 troops strong, reflects its peaceful stance, ranking it highly on the Global Peace Index. Fiji's rugged landscape adds to its appeal as a natural refuge. The two main islands, Viti Levu and Vanua Levu, are mostly covered by lush, dense forests, with mountain ranges, jungles, and reefs making large areas uninhabitable. In many ways, this lack of population density and accessibility could prove advantageous. Fiji's remote forested terrain offers refuge from fallout, while its countless caves and underground tunnels provide excellent natural shelters. These geological features mean that even if fallout did reach the islands, many places could offer protection from radiation exposure. Food and water security also set Fiji apart. With its rich marine resources and fertile land, Fiji has a sustainable supply of fresh fish, local fruits, and water. Although some resources may be harder to access during wartime, Fiji's potential for self-sufficiency remains high. In fact, 3/4 of the population already live along the coasts of Viti Levu, largely near the capital Suva or Nadi, where tourism and local agriculture thrive. If there's a paradise to be found at the end of the world, Fiji might just be it. Number 5. Greenland. And just like that, we're back to expanses where survival takes on a whole new meaning. Vast, icy, and geographically isolated, Greenland could be the ideal refuge from global chaos. With a total area of 836,330 square miles, Greenland, an autonomous territory of the Kingdom of Denmark, is the world's largest island, tucked between Canada and Iceland in the Arctic Ocean. Besides Greenland's remoteness, its sparse population makes it an unlikely target in any potential conflict. Now, how sparse are we talking? the most sparsely populated on Earth, that's how. Only 56,865 residents are spread across Greenland's entire territory, resulting in a measly 0.078 people per square mile. Greenland's largest city, Nuuk, is home to fewer than 20,000 people. Outside the towns, the majority of the island is covered by an ice sheet stretching over 650,000 square miles, which provides a natural barrier against both human intrusion and environmental hazards. The majority of Greenland's settlements are tiny fishing villages, where the main source of sustenance come from local hunting and fishing. This self-sufficiency offers a buffer from food shortages that could emerge during global conflict. Greenland's terrain adds yet another layer of security. With no major cities, minimal infrastructure, and a lack of military presence, Greenland offers very few tempting targets for any potential invader. The island's coastlines are frozen over for 9 months of the year, further isolating it from potential aggressors who would need to brave the perilous Arctic waters. Any hostile approach would take extraordinary effort and planning, not to mention snowmobiles or sleds, rather than conventional tanks or aircraft. However, if you do escape to Greenland, there's one potential challenge to keep in mind: polar bears. Climate change is bringing these formidable creatures closer to human habitats, adding an unusual risk factor. But hey, dodging bears sounds a lot better than dodging missiles, right? Number 4. Australia. There's no doubt about it, Australia is one of the best bets for surviving a global catastrophe, including nuclear war. There are even studies to back this claim up. A 2022 study ranked Australia as one of the 2 countries most likely to see civilization survive for at least a decade after a nuclear event. As for the second one, it's actually ranked number 1 on our list, so you'll have to wait a little longer for that. But back to Australia. What makes it rank so highly on the list of world's most survivable places? In short, isolation, resources, and resilience. In terms of isolation, Australia's geographical location offers an inherent advantage. The country's distance from other continents places it well out of range of many missile threats and nuclear fallout patterns, especially from conflicts in the Northern Hemisphere. Although China, a global powerhouse that might take part in World War III, is in its general vicinity, Australia's distance from major military threats still keeps it relatively shielded. Then there's the vastness and low population density. With almost 3.5 million square miles of land, but just 31 million people, Australia has vast empty spaces that could offer refuge far from any potential fallout zones. Even if an attack did target Australia, its sheer size means that many areas would remain untouched, and its dispersed population would reduce casualties. Food security is another major factor. Australia is a global agricultural giant, capable of producing enough food to feed 75 million people annually, nearly 3 times its own population. This self-sufficiency extends to resources like coal, natural gas, and minerals, which power its industries and can sustain its population even if global supply chains collapse. Australia also has a well-organized and resilient military and a proven track record of handling national crises, from bushfires to economic challenges. Of course, Australia's spirit of resilience is nothing new. After all, we're talking about a country that's repeatedly faced and recovered from massive disasters, both natural and man-made, making Australia a mighty bastion of survival in the face of global terror. Number 3. Switzerland. For many people, Switzerland is the first country that comes to mind when they hear the word neutrality, and for good reason. Switzerland is truly the epitome of a neutral nation, avoiding involvement in any major armed conflict for over 200 years. Despite sitting in the heart of Europe, it's managed to avoid the turmoil that embroiled the continent during both world wars, so why would the third iteration be any different? But Switzerland's historic stance on neutrality isn't the only thing that makes it a top contender for one of the safest places on Earth. The Swiss Alps also provide a natural fortress, shielding the country and complicating any invasion. High-altitude passes can be blocked or controlled with relative ease, and in case of an emergency, many of the bridges and tunnels connecting Switzerland to neighboring countries can be destroyed to cut off access. But this country isn't only about natural defenses, it also offers an extensive network of bunkers and fallout shelters. Initially designed during World War II to protect the Swiss population from Axis threats and later repurposed to counter potential Cold War Soviet attacks, Switzerland has developed nearly 370,000 bunkers, capable of housing up to 9.3 million people, almost the entire population of the country. Plus, Switzerland might be neutral, but this neutrality doesn't mean they're passive. Beneath the stereotype of Swiss diplomacy lies a country that takes its security very seriously. Every male citizen under the age of 50 is considered a reserve soldier, often required to keep a personal weapon, usually a military-grade rifle, at home. This policy isn't just for show, it's a cornerstone of Switzerland's national defense. This makes Switzerland quite a unique refuge, one that's equal measure fortified and peaceful, offering a unique combination of neutrality and preparedness unmatched by nearly any other country. Number 2. Iceland. Iceland stands out as one of the safest nations in the world, consistently topping the Global Peace Index. This flattering ranking reflects Iceland's low crime rates, high societal stability, and absence of military conflict, making it a unique haven for peace. But a number on a scale won't mean much to you if World War III breaks out. So let's see what Iceland has to offer as a hideaway. Strategically, Iceland's isolated location reduces the chances of nuclear targeting. Experts have noted that due to its position, Iceland would be difficult to reach with a nuclear missile without advanced detection, and its small population means it's not an attractive target for large-scale destruction. While the lack of a standing army might seem like a vulnerability, it's also a deterrent. Iceland's lack of military infrastructure makes it less relevant as a strategic target. Another one of Iceland's major advantages is its resource sufficiency. Unlike many nations that depend heavily on imported energy and food, Iceland has abundant fresh water, rich marine resources, and a reliable, renewable energy supply. The country generates all its electricity from geothermal and hydroelectric sources, ensuring a steady energy supply even in cases of global infrastructure collapse. Even if the electrical grid were compromised during a global conflict, Iceland's geothermal hot springs could still provide power for basic needs. Plus, it doesn't hurt that the landscape is breathtaking, with stunning waterfalls, dramatic glaciers, and the mesmerizing northern lights, making it a serene haven where nature flourishes amid turmoil. Number 1. The Southern Cone. When the world edges toward chaos and every major city trembles, the Southern Cone of South America emerges as the ultimate refuge. The Southern Cone, Brazil, Chile, Argentina, Paraguay, Peru, and Uruguay, is no ordinary corner of the globe. It's shielded from global conflict by the towering Andes, the icy grip of the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, and an enviable position thousands of miles from global powers. Unlike nearly every other place, the Southern Cone isn't on the path to anywhere. It's practically invisible to the ambitions of superpowers, and in the face of a global catastrophe, this vast region's isolation becomes its greatest strength. The countries here are blessed with vast natural resources, food protection and renewable energy. Argentina's wheat fields, Paraguay's self-sufficient agriculture, Chile's energy-rich deserts, and Uruguay's peaceful countryside make the Southern Cone not just resilient, but prepared to endure any crisis. With one of the world's lowest conflict rates, the Southern Cone has kept itself away from major military entanglements. There are no sprawling foreign bases or strategic targets that make it a priority in global warfare. This is a place where survival doesn't mean scraping by, it means living with a chance of normalcy, far from the chaos unfolding across the hemispheres. But which of the Southern Cone countries would be the ultimate haven? Without a doubt, Argentina. Remember the 2022 study we mentioned when discussing Australia? Well, Argentina is the other country that's most likely to see civilization survive for at least a decade after a nuclear event. Why? What does Argentina have to earn this unorthodox title? Argentina, the giant of the Southern Cone, embodies the region's resilience. With a climate and terrain that produce more than enough food to sustain its people and an agricultural system designed to weather extreme conditions, Argentina is a lifeboat waiting for those who reach it. Imagine a country where the fertile pampas produce grains that can survive nuclear winter, where the countryside is dotted with rivers and lakes that keep fresh water flowing, and where people are no strangers to self-reliance. That's Argentina in a nutshell. But for the truly cautious, there's Tierra del Fuego, Argentina's wild, isolated southern tip, a land practically made for survivalists. This remote, windswept territory, known as the end of the world, could very well be humanity's last refuge. The 18,572 square mile piece of land is surrounded by some of the most treacherous waters on Earth, and its fierce, unrelenting winds would sweep away any remnants of radioactive fallout that might drift this far. So if you're choosing the safest place on Earth, the Southern Cone of South America, and Argentina with its remote Tierra del Fuego in particular, has everything you'll need. Out of reach, self-sufficient, and shielded by nature's fiercest defenses, this region is where survival can transform into something more, a fresh start at the end of the world. And there you have it, the top 10 safest places for surviving World War III. Which one would you choose? Or is your pick not on the list? If not, do share what makes it special in the comments section below. Now go and check out Where Should You Hide If World War III Starts, or click this other video instead.